Instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching the basic fundamentals of sales and marketing and how we can use them to win in the world of politics, teaching you how to meet people where they're at on the issues they care about. Welcome to the Brian Nichols Show.
We are born free, and we will die free. The time in between, though, that's complicated. In that time, governments, institutions, and our egos will limit our ability to find true freedom in this life. These are real stories of real people overcoming the odds, persevering in justice, and unlocking their potential. Welcome to Finding Freedom. Here's your host, John Odermatt.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Finding Freedom right here on the Lions of Liberty Network. Of course, Lions of Liberty, the network we have here. Every week we have 3 shows. We kick things off on Monday with this show, Finding Freedom. On Wednesday, we have Mean Age Daydream with Brian McWilliams. And on Friday, we have a host of different shows. Lately, it's been Meme Wars. We're going to try to do Meme Wars at least 2 or 3 times a month. We mix in a show that Brian does with Robbie the Fire Bernstein called Hate Watch. And we haven't done one for a while, but maybe this next month in March, we will do another episode of our famous Libertarians in Living Rooms Drinking Liquor. So you can get that 3 shows per week here on Lions of Liberty. Okay, I do want to make a quick announcement before today's show. I got a great guest lined up for you. Brian Nichols, good friend of mine, good friend of Lions of Liberty. We'll be speaking with him about local politics and how you can actually win and make changes through local politics, which to a lot of people in the Liberty movement, it's something they've never even considered before, actually winning and making an impact at the local level. But before I get to introducing Brian, I want to let everyone know about a change, a enhancement we are making to our Patreon program. So you can join our Patreon program at Lions of Liberty, at patreon.com/Lions of Liberty. And what we're doing for our $15 per month and up patrons, every quarter, we're going to bring on a different expert. I'm a different individual, in the field of the Liberty movement, the comedy space, business, entrepreneurship, whatever. So we're going to do this 4 times a year. The first one is going to be coming up this month, and it's going to be with Robbie the Fire Bernstein. So Brian and I are going to be talking with Robbie the Fire. It's going to be fantastic. It's going to be enlightening. It's only going to be available to people who sign up for our Lions of Liberty Pride at $15 and up level. Now, this first one, I think Brian and I are going to make it available to everyone in the Pride. But after that, after this first one, we will be restricting it to just those patrons who are at $15 and up. So make sure to join the Pride, patreon.com/Lions of Liberty, or you can join us on Locals, lionsofliberty.locals.com. So check that out. And that's all I got for today. Let's just get right into today's interview with Brian Nichols. Okay, we're live to the Lions of Liberty Pride, and I'm joined by Brian Nichols of the Brian Nichols Show. He has a 5-day per week podcast that focuses on sales and marketing strategies to win in business and politics. And there's a new book out, How to Win Your Local Election, which is something that personally I am very interested in. So looking forward to speaking with him about that. Brian, welcome to Finding Freedom, man.
John, good to talk to you again, my man. How you doing? And thank you for having me on the show. Looking forward to digging into things.
Yeah, I was. Did I have you on the show when it was Felony Friday? I can't remember.
I don't know.
This is the first time you've been on the show
many a time, but I don't know if I've been on your show.
I don't know if I have either. I know that, I've been on your show. I think Mark had you on Lions of Liberty.
Yeah, I've been on with Mark many a time.
Times. Yeah. So either way, great to have you here, man. And, that's my fault. I haven't had you on, if that is in fact the case, because you are not only one of the hardest working people in the podcast world, as we just talked pre-show. I did not realize you were doing a 5-day per week podcast still. That is a commitment. So, tremendous respect for that. And I kind of want to start out there talking about your podcast. Tell my audience, tell the Lions of Liberty audience, the Finding Freedom audience about your show, what it's all about, and what people can expect when they tune in.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I started my show back in 2018, much like many other libertarian shows, which is a bunch of libertarians sitting around talking about why we're libertarian, why we're right, and how great it is to be a libertarian. And I did that for about 2 years or so. And I realized that I wasn't really, I was having great conversations, but beyond that, what was I accomplishing? And not just for me, but for the greater movement. What were we doing beyond just talking to each other within our own echo chambers? So my day job, I'm in the sales world, and I work in this, greater B2B space, working with some Fortune, 500 down companies. And we're, talking about how we can help them in the world of cybersecurity and business technology. And I was like, there's stuff I'm doing here. And at this time I was leading a sales team when I was out in Philadelphia. And I was like, there's stuff that I teach my sales team that I could teach the greater liberty movement to help us be more effective at not just talking to people, but actually getting people on board with our ideas. So about like mid 2020 or so, had a real switch. And it was really during the COVID pandemic when this all happened, because I saw now more than ever, it was important for us to stop arguing and start being successful. So we started talking about how do we sell liberty? And with that, I actually wrote my first ebook, which was how to sell liberty to friends and family in 4 easy steps, and outlined just specifically how you go through. Do you start, engaging in conversations with guns a-blazing, or do you start by planting seeds and having more organic conversations with, folks who actually care about you and people that, frankly, you care about the most as well? So we talk about that. We talk about strategy, messaging, skills that we use in the world of business that are effective in helping win sales. What can we use when we're trying to win elections or to win converts, right? So over the past 2 years, we've really made that the focus. I guess 3 years now. Wow. Going on 3 years is sell liberty. And how do we effectively do that? So with that, yes, you mentioned it, 5 days a week. We have a show. And we diversify, right? We have usually 3 days a week, we'll have a guest in the show. And that guest is going to be on the show talking about usually their solutions they're bringing to the table in the private sector. A lot of folks in the nonprofit space, a lot of candidates, economists. You go through it talking about the problems we see out there and the solutions we can bring to the table. And then the other 2 days are usually going to be one-on-one days, coaching days, where I sit down with the audience. We'll have a 10-minute or so episode. And it's literally just sitting down and talking about a particular issue and how we can effectively talk about it, or skills that we can learn and how to understand. So like, instead of trying to block or overcome objections, instead treat them like concerns. And with that understanding that they're concerns, try to address people's concerns. So just reframing things and how we can stop trying to win arguments and instead win hearts and minds, right? And I know that sounds very cliche, but at the end of the day, that also led to why I wrote my new ebook, How to Win Your Local Election, because I saw a lot of folks who were talking a big game. And I said, all right, let's put our money where our mouth is and actually help get some folks into local office where we have the most success. So taking the principles we talk about in the greater sales world and then applying it to the local world for a local election. So yeah, man, it's been a wild journey, a lot of fun, and I'm really excited to see where we're headed. So,
and now a word from our sponsors.
EABLES. Ebles. Remember that name, because if you suffer from chronic joint and muscle pain like me, then Ebles Broad Spectrum CBD Oil is your answer to your prayers. Ebles is truly a game changer in the natural alternatives to big pharma drugs. And yours truly can indeed vouch for the quality of Ebles. Having a herniated disc in my back, coupled with years of sports injuries, I was struggling to find something, anything, to help manage my pain. That is, until Ebles. And right now, Ebles is offering a special discount to all members of the Brian Nichols Show audience on all orders. All you have to do is head to ebles.com and use promo code TBNS. That's it. Discount applied. Again, the code is TBNS at checkout to start managing your pain today with the highest quality CBD on the market. One more time, it is code TBNS at checkout.
Yeah, so I'm curious to get your take on a couple things before we get into talking about the book. So
Yeah.
just in general, I mean, you're talking about sales and marketing, applying those strategies from business to the political realm, to from anywhere from talking to family relatives at the Thanksgiving table to actually running a political race.
Right.
And I'm curious, like how similar is it really, from a sales perspective, somebody selling a product, selling a software either to a consumer or like you do business to business, to actually, talking to a constituent, talking to a voter. How similar is that interaction? I mean, is it really the same process?
Same church, different pew. If you think about it, the reason it's very similar is because at the point that we know there's a transaction going on, the customer or the voter, the red flags go up, right? The alarm bells, they're instantly going to be in that high alert phase because they know they're being sold to, and people don't like being sold to. So to be able to sell without selling, right? That is what we talk about on the show, is how do we have these conversations where, and you talk about the business world, right? Being a sales guy, there is this cliche of the used car salesman kind of approach to sales, selling people things they don't need. I used to hate the cliche of, wow, that guy could sell ice to an Eskimo. It's like, no, that you shouldn't sell ice to an Eskimo because Eskimos don't need ice. And
doesn't solve a problem, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And like understanding that not everybody, right, is going to be your target market, to understand that your product, your service, your solution isn't going to be the right fit for everybody at that moment in time. So I think in that perspective, when you're talking about candidates, right, it's who's your target market when you're a candidate. If you're going out and you're trying to preach the same message to every single person and expect to have success, you're going to be really disappointed at the voting box when it comes election day, because people are motivated usually on emotional drivers. And you as the candidate have to figure out what are the top emotional drivers in your community that you can make your main issues for your campaign, and then address those. Talk to the constituents about those issues. Make it a highlight of your campaign. Use it on social media. And then that's where you're going to have more success. But just going out and trying to be this one-size-fits-all approach to messaging, it's squishy, it's ineffective, and it's just going to be a big waste of time and money.
Yeah. And a lot of the stuff we're talking about right now is in the book. So we've already gotten into it, but and I don't want to go through, point by point or anything. People should read it. It's short, it's to the point. Yeah. It's, outlined in a way that's very easy to read. So I guess first, before we go any farther, where can people pick it up? What do people do to get it?
Yeah, for sure. So it's really easy. You can either go to my website, which is briannicholsshow.com. Really easy. It's right there at the homepage. You can see on the top of the website, it says free ebook, how to win local election. Or if you're an old-fashioned fuddy-duddy like me, you can just do the good old-fashioned URL. So it's briannicholsshow.com/win local. And all I need is your email address, because then we'll just go ahead and fire it over.
I totally forgot about listing URLs. We actually used to do that at Lions of Liberty. We would name every show and say it at the beginning, lionsofliberty.com/whatever the show name was.
Yep.
But yeah, people just don't really do that anymore, I guess.
Yeah,
so I guess we are old.
Google and all that stuff. Yeah.
So let's talk about a couple of key aspects here that I'm really interested in, because I'm in Pennsylvania. And one thing that the Libertarian Party of Pennsylvania has done relatively well over the past several years is they've found local races, a lot of the times with nobody even running, and it's basically a free seat, and you're running. And your book is not really targeted at that. Your book is targeted at really beating someone, winning a local election. Right. Yes, you are winning a local election when you're running unopposed, but you're kind of just filling the seat. So I'm curious, is a part of this finding a race that you can win? Is that a part of winning local elections? I mean, it seems kind of crazy to even ask that question, but I feel like a lot of people don't actually look at that part of it before they decide to run for a race.
Yeah, and frankly, that's the unspoken reality that we need to start speaking, right? It needs to start being the spoken reality, is that there are races that you're not going to win. And we think in the Libertarian Party that we can just overcome that reality, and that's just not the case. So to spend your resources and allocate them effectively, that's going to be key, right? And as a candidate, to know where you should spend the most valuable resource you have, which is what? Your time, right? So if you're in a, for example, I was in Philadelphia, would it have made sense for me to have gone out, spend hours knocking on doors, going on subways, going to name the go to the grocery stores in Philadelphia to try and win as a libertarian? No. I know that. I can acknowledge that because Philadelphia, I think, is 85% plus Democrats. So with that in mind, no, I'm not going to waste my time. Versus if I'm in a small, I don't know, Eastern Indiana town like I am now, where I moved out of Philadelphia, now I can see, there would be more of a chance for me to make a real impact, but also to have success, right? To run as a big L libertarian, maybe not even, you mentioned a seat where it's unopposed, but to be a differentiator where somebody's running unopposed in an incumbent in a seat, be a challenger to them and actually be a foil, right? To serve as a real alternative. And then based on the fact that you have more pull in your community, based just on your numbers, right? 1 out of 20, 30, 50,000, whatever it may be, versus 1 out of 4 million. The numbers right there just play in that favor, but also just it plays in favor across the board. Like, use this math. Look, if your district is 85% Republican or 85% Democrat, I mean, maybe not spend that time going on those specific races unless there's the uncontested seats, but maybe there's another spot that you could spend time running for. Do that or get involved in other areas. I mean, and that's the other thing, know your lane, right? Like, you don't have to necessarily go in and be a candidate all the time. There's other roles. Like, I'm not running for office. I'm trying to help other people who are running for office. So I think that's another part of it too, is just because you can run for office doesn't mean you should, especially in places where you're just not going to waste. It's going to be a big waste of time, more or less.
So I take it that you would not be in favor of the libertarian strategy. I think they've changed over the past couple of years, but I remember 4 years ago, it was a libertarian in every race. I take it you would be against that strategy.
Yeah, because not only is that like that. So let's just look at that from a business perspective, right? Like, how much of a waste of resources. Imagine if McDonald's, like going back to the 50s and 60s when they were becoming McDonald's, if their plan was to just have a McDonald's in every single state instantly overnight, right?
Yeah, let's not even look at the economics of it. Let's just put a McDonald's on every street corner. Yeah.
Right. It just doesn't make sense. And you laugh at the idea because it is a silly idea. It's a silly prospect. And the same thing is true with, well, we're just going to run a libertarian every race. Okay, well, good luck with that, because that means it gives you zero opportunity to focus on those races specifically. It gives you zero chance to really figure out which races are going to have the most ability to win, right? But also where to allocate your time, where to send, volunteers, to send door knockers. Like, that's stuff that if you're just trying to do this, throw it at the wall and hope it sticks approach, it's like 1990s, like smile and dial sales. Like, what are we doing? It's not effective, right? It's just a waste of time. And I want us to be more effective. And frankly, John, and you know this, right? Like, we have to. We can't waste our time. We can't waste our resources because of the situation we find ourselves in. We are the RC Cola of political parties. We are the third place party, and it's not even close, right? Like, we're a fraction of the other parties, and we will continue to be a fraction of the other parties until we do something different. And this is why I say we have to start isolating, like, where we spend our time and our resources, and work smarter, not harder.
Let's talk fundraising here, because I've talked about this a lot. That's really, I think, the biggest separator between any third party, be it libertarians or Green Party or Andrew Yang's party, whatever he's doing, the Forward Party. I think it's still called that.
What does that mean? What is a forward for what? To right off the cliff?
I think it just going forward. Wasn't that Hillary Clinton's slogan, forward? When she ran for
that's right. Yeah. I thought it felt familiar and also very creepy. Yeah, it was.
Yeah, it was also very creepy. That's a good way to describe Hillary Clinton. I first wanted to ask you about fundraising and kind of your thought on how these smaller campaigns can build out a fundraising campaign to actually not only bring in, the funds to do some things, but, put a plan in place to spend it and keep, donors engaged and things like that. But I do have a second piece of it, which I'll come back and ask, that has to do with, really just the general landscape of Republicans and Democrats, the whole political landscape I see shifting around fundraising away from that top-down, Republican, Democrat, huge, whatever they call their funds, the DNC, the RNC,
Yep.
kind of were able to control their candidates. So let's do the first part first with the little parties and how they can compete, and then we'll dive in deeper.
For sure. And for smaller parties, and I look at, even if you're a local candidate, let's say you are running as a Republican or Democrat for that matter, like, it is tough to get the funds regardless, unless you already have those pre-existing relationships many times. So I would say, to start things off, like, build a list of immediate friends, family, coworkers, relatives, church friends, like community event friends, whatever it may be, and literally go through that list of friends and say, hey, I'm running for local office. I'm looking to reach out to some folks that mean a lot to me, to figure out what means a lot to you guys about issues in the community, figure out what their issues are, right? And then when you figure out their issues, when you finish up the call, say, hey, listen, I agree. I really want to tackle X, Y, Z. And if you would be, willing to donate $200 to help me get started, it would mean the world. Can we do $200 today? It's awkward. It's uncomfortable, right? But to start things off, you have to do things that are going to be a little awkward and uncomfortable when you're kicking off your campaign from a fundraising standpoint. And this is across the board, whether it's fundraising from a local campaign. Dude, I was in a congressional campaign back in the 2010s, and I remember I got a phone call. So I was the body guy for the candidate. That means literally I was with the candidate like 24/7. We drove across the district a bajillion times, and the campaign manager calls me, and he's like, Brian, we need him to do fundraising calls. So we need you to when you see him just on his phone, tell him to do fundraising calls. And that was like part of my job. And to get a congressional candidate, right? A millionaire congressional candidate, mind you, to just do fundraising calls was
this a Republican or a Libertarian?
It was a Republican. Yeah. This is back in the 2010s. Yeah. So to see that, it was like, oh, wow. To have that be pulling teeth as a congressional candidate, just imagine for you local candidates, the same thing is going to be true, right? So bite the bullet, start doing the list of calls. That's number one. But number two, and this goes to the meeting people where they're at on the issues they care about. When you talk to your voters and you figure out what are those key issues, right? You can start to tailor your content that you're promoting as a candidate, right? And don't rely on the corporate media to take your narrative forward. You can start to set it and build authentic relationships with your constituents one-on-one through the channels we have available, and start to build that relationship there. And once you start to focus on those specific issues that they really matter to people, you're going to get people not only involved, but emotionally connected. And once that emotional connection happens, then they start to feel that you are an extension of solving that problem. And that's where they're going to be more likely not only to donate themselves and financially support your campaign, but then they become super fans, right? We talked about this with my good buddy, Chris Guizetta. He's a marketing professor, and he did a lot in the music industry, and the importance of creating super fans where they not only like your product, but they go out and actively promote your product. The same thing is going to be true here, where you're getting your constituents or your voters to be super fans, where they're not just promoting you, they're now getting other people on board, and hopefully they're going to be donating as well. And this is what Obama did really well. This is what Trump did really well.
Ron Paul. That was Ron Paul's whole campaign.
Biden was in the basement, so he doesn't really count. But yeah, Ron Paul, exactly. Like, you get people to mobilize. And heck, even Bernie Sanders, right? You want to look at the other side too. Bernie Sanders, his fans would stick with him pretty much till the end. And that speaks to, because they believe him, they believe in him, right? Not just who he is as a politician, but what he represents. There's more to it. So that would speak to, I guess, the importance of really building the authentic connection. And what was your second question there, John? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. No, I mean, yeah. My second question. So the whole thing that happened with Speaker McCarthy not being able to get the votes with the recent House election, which obviously he did end up getting them, and kind of my observation from that was seeing people like Matt Gaetz and what's the other one's name? Boebert. Is it Lauren Boebert?
Lauren Boebert, yeah.
From Colorado,
Mm-hmm.
and many others. I just don't know their names. Were able to kind of just like stand in the gap. And I think they did accomplish some decently, worthwhile things from doing so, and got some concessions. But I think they were able to do so in that they're fundraising. And I think this is going to start to become really a theme in politics on both sides, Democrats and Republicans. Like people like AOC are able to kind of just stand on their own and fundraise across the country, based on having a bunch of super fans. Really, essentially, they become this level of influencer almost, and the parties are unable to control them. I just kind of wanted to get your take on that aspect of politics kind of shifting.
Oh, I love it, right? Because you talk about barriers to entry, and you talk to Justin Amash at all, and for this is not to anybody who has any critiques or beef with him. This is more so his history of what he experienced when he was in Congress, right? And you want to talk about how sausage is made, the behind the scenes in terms of being able to bring just ideas to leadership as ideas in order to get there to did you do your fundraising goals, right? To get in committee assignments, all this stuff, it's all through pulling the purse strings. So if you eliminate that as the barrier to entry, all of a suddenly, what are they going to do? Like, what is the means for them to really effectively maintain control beyond just the structural stuff? And even in that case, they're having trouble getting people on board, because you just saw what happened when 20 some odd Congress folks could just go ahead and say, no, we're not going to go on board with this. So I think, to your point, right, it goes to the super fans. They have now been able to almost monetize beyond their constituent base. They become these figures, right? I mean, AOC's getting thousands, sometimes millions of folks watching her doing her little, like cooking in the kitchen and complaining about gas stoves while using a gas stove. And it speaks to the politics has gotten much more than the processes that we political folk, we like to talk about. Like, we like how that system, like to talk about the system itself and all the behind the scenes stuff. But your average person is looking at your politicians more in this celebrity type of mentality, right? They look to the figure. They look to find that emotional connection on top of the issues connection. So when you can bridge those two worlds together, it's a perfect storm. That's why Matt Gaetz has, such an ability to build up a great, audience, but also to build trust with his constituents. And likewise, you look on the other side of the table. We mentioned Bernie Sanders, AOC, they have the same abilities. So I think there's a lot to learn from that, and how to effectively take your ideas and to then be able to use it in a strategic way, right? To activate not just your voters, but also those who would financially support you across the board.
Yeah. It's really libertarians love to talk about decentralization, and I don't think you're ever going to get the money out of politics, right? Politicians have power. There's always going to be special interests, somehow are going to weasel their way in there. But if you can at least diversify the influence of those special interests, I don't think that can be a bad thing. It's just more competition, which I think is almost a good thing no matter what. So that'll be interesting to watch that unfold. And I think it's going to happen pretty rapidly and accelerate pretty rapidly, especially in the next 2 to 4 years here. So it'll be cool to watch.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Wanted to talk about, you had a quote in your book, and I've heard this many different ways, but essentially it boils down to what gets measured gets managed.
Yes.
And one of my biggest criticisms of the Libertarian Party, of libertarian campaigns, is so many times it's just, I'm running for office, support me. What's your goal in running for office? I don't know. I'm running for office because we need a libertarian on the ballot.
Back in the day,
why am I giving
check on Twitter? That's what they wanted.
Yeah. Why am I giving you money? I don't know. So these smaller campaigns, and it could be libertarian, it could be Green Party, it could be an independent campaign, whatever. How do they set a goal? What's some examples of goals that they could set if they can't win? Because a lot of these races they can't win, to be able to show that, measure progress against it.
Yep. Larry Sharpe is a great example of someone I would refer to see exactly that situation, right? You ran, you didn't win, but how do we measure success? So what did Larry do? Now, Larry obviously did it a little bit differently because he did it on a state scale, but he started up how many different libertarian chapters across New York State? I forget the number, but he went to every single county multiple times over. He even went up to visit my home county, which is like the farthest north you can go in New York State without hitting Canada. He went all the way up there multiple times, right? And he was able to build a movement in that regards. I would also say you can look to see is how many folks were openly willing to give you their contact information for you to then have on an email list that you can own in the future to stay in contact with them, right? Because those are folks that you will be able to leverage in the future for future campaigns or for future movements, right? So it doesn't even have to be necessarily a campaign in the future. It could be a cause issue where now you have an email list that you can leverage. Also, I would say you can look at the dollars that you raised. You can leverage, even if you didn't win your campaign or your race, even if you have some funds that are still on hand to be able to reinvest those in the future and plan for future campaigns. Use that as a learning opportunity, but also now you have some funds that you can start to maybe use for marketing and get your name more out there now that you already have some name recognition. So like off the top of my head, those would be like the three easiest ways probably to measure.
Yeah, I think just so many libertarians just come at it with almost no plan. And another thing Larry Sharpe did that is great is he used his campaign as an opportunity, and you talk about this in the book, of actually building a campaign team. I mean, you talk about, ideal campaign structure in the book. Mm-hmm. And, he really taught people how to run campaigns. And that's another thing we talked about, how, libertarians, they wanted to have a candidate on every ballot. Well, if you're a candidate on every ballot, no one's learning how to be a campaign manager or a treasurer or anything else. So I thought that was a really interesting aspect of Sharpe's campaigns as well. So with regards to the book or anything else that you're working on or want to talk about, is there anything that when you came on this show and you were like, I really hope that John asks me this question or about this topic or this subject, and I didn't ask you? Is there anything that I missed that you really want to?
Is this the part where I get to be a sales guy? Because John, the one thing that you didn't,
I just put it up on a tee for you, and you can smack it out of the park.
The one thing you didn't ask me was, well, hey, everything in this book sounds great. I read the book. Everything looks great in the book, but like maybe I still want the training wheels, right? What can I do? Well, John, thank you for asking. We have our candidate school over at the Patreon. So if you want to go ahead and join not just yours truly, but also a network of other candidates who are running for local office. Right now, we have folks who are running for city council, running for mayor. And what we also have is folks coming on I almost said on the show, on the Patreon to talk, who are also past candidates who have run for local elections. And what we're learning is the things that have been successful, but also from folks who have lost their elections, so we can learn what they did wrong, what they would have done differently in the past. We're networking, we're working together, having collaborative conversations, bouncing ideas off each other. So if you want to be a part of this awesome group of our candidate school, it's over on our website, briannicholsshow.com. You can go ahead, find the link there. Or if you're looking, again, for those pretty redirects, it's briannicholsshow.com/candidate school. And it's $9.95 a month, right? And this is the thing I think a lot of folks, when they run for office and they're looking for help, they start to Google like, okay, political consultant fees. They're like $10,000, and they instantly stop Googling because they're terrified what's going to come next. And I saw that as an issue. So I said, for local candidates, we need to be able to eliminate that barrier to entry. So I thought $10, less than $10 a month, we're having this type of a network for folks to access. I thought that was a pretty darn good deal. So if folks are interested, again, link over at briannicholsshow.com/candidate school.
Yeah, solving a problem. I love it. And also let people know, once again, where they can find the podcast and your social media and anything else.
Cool. Thank you, John. Yes. So if you want to go ahead and continue the conversation with yours truly, you can find me at B Nichols Liberty. I'm on Twitter, Facebook, pretty much anywhere there's social media, but Twitter and Facebook are where I'm definitely most active, especially over on Twitter. That's where, Elon has let me be free now. Thank you, Elon. Otherwise, you want to go ahead and email me, Brian at briannicholsshow.com. And as for the podcast, yes, instead of focusing on winning arguments, we're teaching people how to win hearts and minds by talking about sales and marketing as they apply to the world of business and to politics. You can find us Monday through Friday, 5 days a week over at briannicholsshow.com, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever it is you get your podcasts. You can go ahead, search the Brian Nichols Show. We should show up. And then if you like the video version of the show, you can go ahead and find us over on YouTube, Odyssey, and over on Rumble. And when you're there, of course, hit the subscribe button and little notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live when we have awesome guests like John Odermatt and Mark Claire and Brian McWilliams from the amazing Lions of Liberty, though we do miss our good friend Mark Claire, though he's still rocking and rolling. He's still doing great things. So good to see.
He's doing well. Mark's doing great things. But Brian Nichols, thank you so much for coming on the show, man. And I know people really enjoyed this. And so I want to encourage everyone, go check out Brian's podcast. If you haven't, buy the book and everything else Brian is working on.
It's
we'll
free.
Talk soon, buddy.
It's a free book. You don't even have to buy it. It's free.
Oh my God. That's right. It's free. I just thought it was a gift to me. I thought you made it free for me, but I guess it's free for everybody.
Free for everyone. There you go.
All right. We'll see you, buddy.
See you, bud. Thanks.
All right. Hope you guys enjoyed that conversation with Brian Nichols. He is a good guy and a good friend of mine. Always enjoy getting to speak with Brian. I love the way that he approaches politics. And, the more and more, I was going to say the older I get, but it's not really the older I get. It's just sort of the way I've evolved in the past, 4 to 5 years, where I am just so disgusted with federal politics, with the greater Republican Party, Libertarian Party, all of the mudslinging, the back and forth, just a waste of time, just literally wasting people's time. I've had enough of it. So it's refreshing for me to see someone like Brian and his approach to politics, approaching it from a marketing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, and from the standpoint of we are going to put a plan in place to have goals set ahead of time to define what winning is. What does winning look like at the end of this campaign? What will need to happen for you to be able to say, I won? And not in every scenario will it actually mean that you won the race per se. It could be a stepping stone to another eventual actual win of an office or something like that. But defining your goals and objectives is so freaking important. And Brian lays that out in his book. I suggest everyone go out, pick it up. Invaluable information. I will link to everything that Brian talked about, his program that he has, and the book, and everything else that he's put together. So I would encourage you, if you are someone who is, a little bit crazy and wants to get involved locally, maybe do a run for school board or your local mayor or county commissioner or something like that. If you're just feeling a little squirrely and you want to get involved, you want to make some noise and shake things up and actually impact change, because you can do that at the local level. You can't really do that at the federal or even the state level. If you want to shake things up, I really encourage you to go the Brian Nichols avenue through this and learn from him and learn from others in that sphere of influence. So yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to do, was just reinforce what we talked about during that interview. And one more thing is just to remind you, we talked about the pride at the top, the changes we're making quarterly. We're going to bring on some experts in different fields of the liberty and greater freedom movement. Really excited about it. The other thing I would say is check out the Lions of Liberty store. We have great t-shirt designs, guys. We have some new ones that are up right at the top of the page that have to do with the jabby jab and the pharmaceutical companies. And they're pretty entertaining designs. And I really want to encourage you to check them out. Buy them for a friend, buy them for your mom and dad for their birthday, for your siblings, your grandkids, your sons, your daughters, anybody. Buy them for anybody. lionsofliberty.store. Let's spread that message. Let's shock people with a message of liberty and freedom. So I will talk to you all next week. Next Monday, I have an awesome episode. I've already recorded it. I'm super excited about it. I'm going to tease it right here. If you like tortilla chips, if you like to, snack on tortilla chips, maybe some fresh salsa, maybe a little queso, maybe you enjoy that. I do. I love that. But the one thing I hate is every single brand of tortilla chip out there is either 1, unhealthy, or 2, pretends to be healthy and isn't unhealthy, or 3, is kind of healthy and tastes like garbage. So there's no middle ground yet. But I'm talking next Monday, with the founder of Masa Chips, the first tortilla chip that is fried in grass-fed beef tallow. Awesome deal. I'm going to have a deal lined up for you guys to get them at a discount through our affiliate link. So we'll talk about that next week. I will see you all next week. In the meantime, always remember to keep your head up and the fires of liberty burning.
Thanks for listening to The Brian Nichols Show. Find more episodes at briannicholsshow.com.
Enjoying the audio version of the show? Then you'll love our YouTube channel. Be sure to head over there and subscribe. And if you're new to The Brian Nichols Show, be sure to head to your favorite podcast catcher and click download all unplayed episodes so you don't miss one of our nearly 500 episodes that will be sure to leave you educated, enlightened, and informed. If you got value from today's episode, can you do me a favor and head to briannicholsshow.com/support and leave us a $5 donation? And by the way, have you given the show a 5-star review yet? If not, head to Apple Podcasts and tell folks why you listen to the program, and don't forget to tell your friends to subscribe too. Follow me on social media at @BNicholsLiberty. And again, if you'd be so kind, please consider making a donation to The Brian Nichols Show at briannicholsshow.com/support.